Okay. I have 6 o'clock. Thank you all for attending. I'd like to call the November 17th, 2020 board meeting to order. This meeting of the Sugar Grove Village Board will be held as outlined in Public Act 101-0640, which waives the Open Meeting Act requirement that a physical quorum of elected officials be present to hold a public meeting in the event of a public health disaster declaration and a determination by the village president. Governor Pritzker issued a statewide disaster declaration on November 13th, 2020, and in response, President Shawn Michaels determined that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent at this time. Okay, we do have one member of the public that is just walked in. With that, Sean Heron, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call, please, Alice.
Trustee Cook?
Here.
Trustee Koenig?
Here.
Trustee Lindy?
Here.
Trustee Walter?
Here.
Trustee Heron?
Here.
Trustee Montalto?
Here.
President Michaels?
Here. Thank you. We have a quorum. I'd like to open up the public hearing on the 2020 proposed tax levy process. Matt, would you explain that process for us, please?
I will. So each year you have to pass the tax levy, and that will levy taxes for the following year. If one is not passed in a year, then the village would get 0 taxes. The process that the village goes through is kind of based on the EAV, which is the assessed values of the homes. Unfortunately, those come from Kane County, and we don't receive those until about January of next year. The deadline to pass a tax levy is the end of the calendar year. So what we do is we approve and process a levy that is a significant amount above the prior year. And what this does is it tries to capture all the new constructions, the remodels, new businesses, any type of new EAVs or assessments that the assessor will do. When that gets sent to Kane County, the village is non-home rule, which means that we are a tax cap community. So we can request whatever we would like, but we are legally not going to get any of it unless the county will limit what we can receive. That is generally an increase of whatever CPI is for the prior year. For this current tax year, that is set by Kane County at 2.3%. And that's the average that a household generally will go up. We are anticipating a 2.87% in total levy, which will include all the new constructions and additional EAVs that the village has. So the village's tax cap based on CPI of the prior year, and we are not eligible to receive anything more than that. And that's because we are a non-home rule community. So we do approve and pass a levy for a larger amount just to make sure that we are capturing all of the new constructions, the new assessments that are made on buildings, whether it's residential remodel, which the village does not do assessments, the townships will do the assessments. So what this means is in an estimate on an average home at market value of about $275,000 is about a $13 increase to the yearly tax bill. So that kind of explains the process of what the tax levy is and how we get to the number of the 2.87 is 2.3 for CPI plus any new construction we believe that the village will have.
Okay. Allison, I believe you received some letters regarding the tax levy.
Yes. Do you want me to read those first?
Would you please? It's part of the public hearing.
Okay. First is from Mary Baker, and it was written to Matt Anastasia. Dear Matt, the property taxes are already insanely ridiculous. I have heard justifications for high property tax amounts, but they don't make sense at all. My family in Louisiana pays annual property tax amounts equivalent to what I pay in a single week. In their schools, they have multiple full-time art staff, full-time librarians, multiple counselors, assistables, reading specialists, tons of paraprofessionals, more technology, a 14-to-1 student-teacher ratio, funding for professional development, etc. Their road construction is completed much more quickly than it is here. Additionally, the state pays for 4 years of college for residents who want to attend in-state. I don't understand why property tax is so high here and certainly object to any increases. The Village of Sugar Grove should manage the money it already receives and not burden residents with unnecessary increases, especially with consideration of the hardships so many people are facing during the pandemic. Thanks, Mary Baker. The next is from Kevin Rick. To the Village Board of Sugar Grove, please vote no for the proposed property tax levy. The property taxes in Sugar Grove and in Kane County are already way too high for the services that we get in return. Let the corrupt state of Illinois politicians find another method for bailout for the most poorly run state in the United States. Regards, Kevin Rick. The next is from Stephen Holm. Dear board members, with regards to your proposed 62% tax increase for the public hearing on November 17th at 6 p.m. As a resident who has lived here in Sugar Grove for over 5 years now, I implore you to not raise taxes yet again, especially not during a pandemic when so many residents are already hurting and trying to make ends meet. Our taxes are already the highest in Northern Illinois and have gone up every year I have been a resident. A distinction that Sugar Grove should not be proud of in the least. We pride ourselves on our transparency and the awards we get for our processes. However, we fail as a community when it comes to actually putting together a balanced and fiscally responsible budget. I know it's hard to think about cutting services, reducing salaries, and delaying the purchase of new equipment, but it must be done. The city only has 9,000 to 10,000 residents currently, yet we pay some of our staff members well over what a city our size should reasonably be paying for such roles. Our administrator, Brent Eichelberger, is paid over $175,000 for his administration responsibilities, when the median pay for a city administrator is only $74,000. This makes his pay more than double an appropriate salary for such a position. Another salaried individual in the city, our Public Works Director, Anthony Special, earns $136,000 for their work. The average pay for a person in Anthony's position ranges from $64,000 to $80,000, making their pay roughly 1.5 times to twice as much at the appropriate level for such a position. Let's move to our police chief, Pat Rollins. His position earns $123,000. The average for a small town with around 10,000 residents is somewhere between $45,000 and $59,000. Again, making their pay double what the appropriate salary for such a position is when considering the size of our town. Our next top earner in Sugar Grove is Walter, and I'm going to mess up his name, Meg Desiris, our Director of Community Development, earning $109,000 per year. The average for a town our size is only $54,000. Our Public Works Supervisor, Brad Merkel, earns $102,000. The average salary for such a role is $54,000. Again, roughly twice the appropriate level for such a role. This continues, of course, as our police force has several sergeants earning double what the average small town sergeant makes. Our officers as well also double the salary what a community our size would normally pay for such a position. We have a major issues with our salaries here in Sugar Grove. But that isn't all. We also have a road issue. We keep building roads despite there being no need for them currently. We build roads on a whim and a lark, it seems, in hopes that some development might come one day. This isn't responsible. It's fiscally irresponsible. We don't have a robust and booming commercial district in Sugar Grove and can't seem to attract new businesses. When new businesses do come, we seem to chase them out of town like a pariah instead of working to find common ground we can all agree on. Companies that do come to town only seem to do so when making heavy agreements with regards to the taxes already in place in order to come here. This should be a glaring and clear sign to the city our taxes are too high. We're told as adults that we need to budget when we want and need things, saving money until we actually have enough to perform the work or get the items needed. Instead, even when prompted to delay or not fulfill a purchase, the city has chosen over and over again to purchase equipment and perform projects that have no money and have no budget to be able to do so. giving common reasons like we can apply for a grant or the state or county is covering part of this, often choosing to perform the purchase before even having any money in hand and without knowing if the money will ever come. These are not signs of good government. They are signs of incompetence, recklessness, and a wanton disdain for the local residents of Sugar Grove. Show some respect to the residents of Sugar Grove and do not raise our taxes again. There are other ways we can reduce the budget and make our existing funds work, though it will be hard. We ask you to be responsible and work with us, not against us. Show us that what we see and hear isn't true. There can still be a future for Sugar Grove. Thank you for your time.
Okay. And that's it, Allison? Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry,
right.
yes, that's all. There are attendees.
Okay. We have a number of attendees that have dialed. If you would like to speak about the public hearing on the 2020 proposed tax levy, they can raise their hand.
Yeah, they need to use the raise the hand feature.
Please use the raise the hand feature, and we'll unmute you and let you speak. We have John, Julie, Michael, Phil, or Rebecca. Going once. If you would please raise your hand using the raise your hand feature. Second call. And final call. Okay, we'll move on. Close that portion. No appointments or presentations. Any public comment on items scheduled for action? Under tonight's consent agenda, we have approval of the minutes from November 3rd, approval of the vouchers, treasurer's report. Under general business, ordinance amending Title 11 of zoning regulations for event venue, and we'll discuss the 2021 road program. There's, I don't think, any comments, any public comments. Again, for those that have dialed in, if you would use the raise your hand feature so that we can call
There is one hand raised.
on. Okay.
Let me see. Julie W., I'm going to unmute you, and you have to unmute yourself to speak.
Julie, we'll give you up to 3 minutes, please. Go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. I wanted to reintroduce myself. My name is Julie Warpinski. About a year ago, I presented starting the farm event venue on Prairie Street. While I'd hoped we'd be talking with you again sooner with COVID and many details to iron out, we're still finalizing and making changes due to the current state of the economy. I just wanted you to know I'm very grateful the village has been open to working with us, and I'm really excited to get moving on this again soon. I know the event venue addition to the E1 zoning will help us in a lot of ways. I did see on the agenda tonight there are some additional changes. I just wanted to possibly just go over a few points on this. I know you're working hard to make this work for everyone, and Walter has been great through this process, so I'm really grateful for that. As well as just a quick update on our status. We've been working really hard to try and sort of come up with ideas on how to navigate this sort of crazy time. But I've sort of changed some of the plans to reflect a smaller size opening. I really want to focus the first few years on being a farm that hosts small events, classes, dinners, and farmers markets. I really enjoyed being part of the Sugar Grove's Farmers Market this summer, and I hope to do it again next summer. Especially with COVID, I think it's more important than ever to have an establishment that can provide members of the community an outdoor space to enjoy these things. And as time goes on, I would probably look into growing the size of the original plan, but that will depend on how the economy is going. But I did quickly want to touch on a few specific points on the E1 zoning before it's discussed tonight. Mostly I wanted to ask if we could include verbiage pertaining to holidays. I'm totally happy with a lot of the points on the E1 zoning, but it doesn't bring up that sometimes, 4th of July is on a Thursday or a Memorial Day on a Monday. The specificity to the size of the event or the end time if possible, we can look at some flexibility on this, if possible. And also, I noticed some specifics on garbage pickup, which is great. I have tons of wild animals roaming around, and no one wants that to be an issue. But I'm unsure of the wording that garbage must be collected 12 hours after the event. I called Waste Management, and they said they don't do Sunday pickups or holidays. So I know this is a very important topic, and I want to make sure that I'm able to provide, follow through with all of this. So I just want to make sure that that topic is covered. But otherwise, that's about it. Everything else looks really good. Again, just wanted to reintroduce myself and say thank you so much for working with me on this. I look forward to hopefully getting everything finalized soon. Thank you so much for your time, and I will stay on in case there are any questions I can help with.
Okay, thank you, Julie. I was going to ask you to stay on, so when we do discuss it, you could chime in. So thank you for your comments.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Is there any other public comments? If you would use the raise your hand feature. If no other attendee has raised their hand, I will close that portion of the agenda. No further public comments. May I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
We have a first by Ted and a second by Trustee Montalto. Any requests to remove an item? Okay, hearing none. Roll call, please. Yeah.
Trustee Cook?
Aye.
Trustee Montalto?
Aye.
Trustee Heron?
Aye.
Trustee Conan?
Aye.
Trustee Lendy?
Aye.
Trustee Walter?
Aye. Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. General business, to talk about the ordinance amending Title 11 zoning regulations. Walter?
Walter, I think you're muted.
Can't you guys read lips? By now, I mean, come on. All right. The ordinance that we prepared for your consideration includes all of the items that we talked about at the last board meeting. But since then, we added a couple things that we thought were appropriate, and those are identified in red in the board report. But I want to address specifically Julie's comments. Those are, I think, valid considerations, and if the board agrees, we would gladly make changes to the proposed ordinance as you see fit. The other thing I want to reiterate is this proposed amendment, again, is not specifically for Julie's proposed operation. All it does is it provides the window of opportunity to grant the special use permit specifically for Julie's operation, and she'll be doing that shortly, we hope. So with that, I'll respond to any questions that the board may have.
I guess. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I missed the at the last meeting. That's when my link cut out. So when I came back on, we were done discussing this particular issue. I like what Julie's saying about the issues of farmers markets and her cooking classes and all the things she's got going. I tend to agree that the 12-hour window for garbage is a little bit too short. Perhaps if we change the wording to the next business day, that would take into consideration, holidays, Sundays, whatever the case may be, and give her the opportunity to take care of it that way. I know it doesn't have to be on a normal garbage day because they can pick up dumpsters anytime. My biggest issue with this project, and it doesn't sound like that's actually going to be part of it now, and reading through your the stuff you've got, it says we can address that later on. It would be the tents and the music and issue like that. I'm not in favor of having, a big circus tent out there all the time and music that the tent will not be able to keep inside. My concerns about the wedding venue issue are bathrooms, handicap parking, all that kind of stuff, and probably the noise. If it was inside of a building, a brick and mortar building, I don't think the music would be an issue, but you can drop the flaps on a tent, but you'll still hear the music through the fabric. So, and there are residences around there on both sides of the tracks. So we'll have to tread on that part lightly, but everything else I think sounds good.
Okay. Thank you, Rick. Any other comments on this issue? I was too going to point out the garbage. I thought that was a little burdensome. So if next business day or within 48 hours, because you might take a day to contact Waste Management or Lakeshore Disposal to have them send out a truck, but something within reason, I think is the intent. And I think Julie pointed out she doesn't want garbage flying around. Okay. All right. But what's the next step with this, Walter?
Well, we could go one of two ways. We could make the change that it appears there's consensus for with the trash pickup because the ordinance is attached for your action tonight. Or we could, table it, or not table it, but continue it to the next board meeting and have everything buttoned up.
I'd like to get this ordinance passed, and it could be modified. I think, Laura, for my signature, if we would modify the motion to include the modification to the garbage pickup, would that be appropriate?
Yep, correct. And did you want to also have the modification with regard to the holidays?
Oh, yes, please. Okay.
Okay, yeah, then the motion should just be amended to reflect that.
Okay. I apologize. Did we have a first and a second?
We do not. I can make the first. Would that be subject to attorney review or modifications?
Okay,
Modification
to attorney review.
Yeah, that's what I'll make it then.
I'll second.
Okay. Would you mind amending it with modifications mentioned to the garbage disposal and holiday hours, Rick?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
You can repeat it.
That'll be my motion, amending the holiday hours and garbage disposal issues.
And Ryan, would you please amend your second?
Sean?
I'll amend.
Oh, was it Sean? Oh, okay. I apologize. It's hard to read lips on these small screens. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other discussion? Okay. Hearing none. Roll call, please, Allison.
Trustee Montalto?
Aye.
Trustee Heron?
Aye.
Trustee Walter?
Aye.
Trustee Cook?
Aye.
Trustee Conan?
Aye.
Trustee Lundy.
Aye.
Great. Well, thank you, Julie, and thank you, Walter, for working this out, and look forward to seeing progress. Thanks, Julie. If you want to disconnect, you're more than welcome to, or you can stay on. It's entirely up to you. Okay. Next is the discussion of the 2021 road program. We have Michelle Piotrowski and Chris Ott with us. Tony, do you want to introduce the program, and then we can turn it over to our guest speakers?
Sean, may I interject? Michelle or Chris, to whom should I give the presenter power to?
Chris.
Okay. Our annual road program. This is the 2021 program. This year, we're getting ready for 2021. Motor fuel tax and local road infrastructure fee. And this year we're looking to have a $586,000 program. It includes a little bit of resurfacing and some crack sealing. And Chris has a presentation.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Chris, go ahead.
Can everyone see my screen right now?
Yes.
Okay, my name's Chris Ott with EEI, also Village of Sugar Grove resident, here to talk about the 2021 roadway maintenance program. So we're just going to go over the village roadway system, go over some budget review and previous recommendations from past reports, go over the updated pavement maintenance that's been performed since the last pavement management report in 2004. Or the first one, I should say, our 2021 proposed road program, and then the next steps. So the village currently has 16.5 centerline miles. In 2003, when we did our study, there was 40.4 miles. In 2006, 54.4, and then in 2011, 60 miles, and then now 60.5 miles. So obviously a lot of growth there between 2003 and current. When we did our first pavement management program study in 2003, the overall pavement condition index 0 through 100 was a 75.9. In 2006, it actually went up to a 78.2 due to the increase in all of the brand new roads and development that was performed. And then 2011 was 74.4, which was when we performed our last pavement management update. So back in February 2018, the village applied for a pavement management program grant through Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, or CMAP. And actually the village was contacted in October that they will be receiving the grant and a free pavement management study performed through CMAP with an update and presentation and everything anticipated to the board in 2021. We're still working through some of the details and getting the agreement signed, the memo of understanding between the village and CMAP, but it sounds like that should be moving forward here in the next month or so. So that's good news that the village is going to be able to get an updated pavement management plan with no cost to the village. So that's good. Slide is showing you neighboring communities and how their MFT dollars compare to population as well as roadway miles. So important thing to realize about the village's MFT allotment is that it's based on population, not based on roadway miles. And because of the way Sugar Grove is they do have quite a lot of miles with not as much population compared to other communities, but obviously there's a lot of room to grow. And because of that, their MFT dollars don't go as far as some other neighboring communities. So on this graph here, the higher the bar graph, the further your dollars go per mile. So just to kind of give you a reference of what other communities in the area are like. Some previous budget review and recommendations. So back in 2006, the micropaper program recommended an annual budget of $750,000, and that was obviously in 2006 dollars. And then in part of the 2011 update, the recommended budget was $1.45 million, with the annual expenditure that the village has been doing at about $623,000. Since 2014 to 2020, the village has averaged on annual $794,000 a year for their annual roadway maintenance. And that's a variety of different funds between MFT projects, local funds, federal projects, water main replacement projects that have resurfacing associated with it. And that's where that dollar value comes up. So you can see that although you're increasing your spending since 2011, you're still not reaching that recommended budget of 1.45 million from 2011, which most likely would have increased as things have gotten more expensive in the last 9 years as well. The 2021 budget is the MFT allotment for this year is $184,000. The transportation renewal fund, which is the additional gas tax that was passed a year and a half ago, is a little under $135,000, and then $267,000 of local funds for a grand total of a little over $586,000. This is a standard payment PCI reduction curve, and what this is trying to show is you want to try and get your pavement maintenance on the flat area of the curve here, where it's cheaper and less expensive. It's not a straight line reduction in terms of PCI versus it's logarithmic. So you want to try and get in your preventative maintenance here to extend this curve out this way, and then get your resurfacing here, since it's 3 times less costly than the reconstruction. And the hope is by doing the preventative measures and the resurfacing at the right time, you can bump this curve out from being 20 years to potentially 25 years. So just need to continue monitoring roadway conditions, utilizing preventative measures such as crack sealing, microsurfacing, and patching, which the village has done a really good job of doing. Make sure we're resurfacing prior to the need for reconstruction, less than half the cost. Continue submissions for federally funded cost-sharing opportunities, which the village has always been aggressive in trying to obtain cost-sharing opportunities in federal funds, and then identify additional funding sources to try and make up that difference between the what you've been spending and what the program said we should be spending. With that, this is going to be a recap of all the microsurveying that's been complete. I'm going to kind of breeze through these pretty quickly. So the addition to this is in 2020, we did microservicing in the Windsor West subdivision here, shown in the middle of the screen. We've done microservicing in Windstone, Black Walnut, Walnut Woods, and Bliss Woods, as well as out in Dugan Woods and in Chelsea Meadows. Then this map shows all the crack sealing the village has done, which in 2020 the village did crack sealing on Heartland, Dugan Road, Gordon Road, to name a few. And then resurfacing. In 2020, the village resurfaced Yolane Court, McCannon, and then the majority of the streets in the Mallard Point subdivision except Cobbler Lane and they also finished resurfacing the courts in Stratford Woods off Windsor. And that's reflected here on the map. So that gets us to the proposed 2021 road program. So crack sealing, the village is doing a good job of doing crack sealing at the opportune time. So they're getting to the point where they're getting caught up and starting to crack seal streets that are in the 4 to 5 year old range. A couple of these streets are 3-4 years old. So there's not a lot of cracks. A lot of the stuff you'll see in the pictures I have attached, they're going to be cracks in the center line, some transverse cracks. And those are the opportune time to crack seal. I'm sure you've seen where you don't get that center crack sealed. It turns into 2-3 cracks, and then it becomes a lot more difficult to get that sealed up. So you want to get that when it starts opening up. The patching would be some patching on Norris Road, and then resurfacing proposed is on Capitol Drive and Park Avenue. So the map here shows the locations of the crack sealing, the patching, and then the resurfacing would be from 47 to St. James on Park, and then from to Bliss on Capitol. And here's some pictures. As I said before, you got, you can see in this upper left picture, there's some center line cracking here in the middle. You got some cracking in the wheel path, but not a lot. And then transverse cracks. Here in the right, again, you've got some transverse cracks, centerline seam, same thing on the bottom right here, and then a little bit more extensive cracking here. This is on Denny Road here by Bliss Woods. We got a little bit more cracking than the rest of the streets. Patching, see there's a lot of locations where you've got coal patch, some potholes. There's been some areas where the village has been out patching what they can. These are areas that we think needs to be addressed here in the next year or so before they continue to get worse, while we try and buy some time to hopefully, this is one of the streets that the village applied for federal funding on. So hopefully in the future, this would be something that could qualify and continue to patch this until we're able to get the federal funds that the village applied for. Then resurfacing wise would be this is Capitol Drive. You can see there's a lot of cracking, some rutting, some potholes. There's been some patching done by the village. I think anyone that drives this can realize that it's not in the best of shape, as well as Park Avenue here. See, there's a lot of patching, coal patch. You got a lot of potholes and cracking forming here at the intersection. So that's the proposed 2021 project with the costs associated. So $47,000 in crack sealing. I think it's $35,000 in patching, and then the resurfacing for a total of $586,000 for the 2021 project total. So kind of the next steps would be, concurrence and confirm the proposed 2021 road program. Then we would plan on going to the board with an engineering agreement at the first meeting in December, and then bid the project out in March, which is consistent with what we've done for the past 4 or 5 years, and then construction in the summer. So any questions?
Chris, I think it's interesting that this seems pretty straightforward this year versus when we've had multiple options and looking at different things we could do. But this looks like this is your first recommendation, and there's really no other options or ideas. I just want to make sure it's really that straightforward this year.
Yeah, so we did look at various other streets. Brad and I did drive all the streets. With the budget that we have, this is what seemed to make the most sense. There is some subdivision work that we looked at doing in Windstone, some costs that we put together for doing work in Windstone and Black Walnut and Windsor Point, and all those exceeded the current budget. Not to say that we couldn't break those streets up in do those neighborhoods in multiple phases. But we thought that based on the conditions of Park and Capitol, the amount of traffic that drives it, and the conditions that they're in, that there's some concern that over the winter it could get significantly worse. And those were the two streets that kind of seemed to make sense, as well as fit the budget that the village has this year.
There's no question that those two need to have the resurfacing, but I'm wondering, when you look at the budget numbers for the crack sealing, it looks like it's almost a deal compared to resurfacing. Is there any more opportunity to do any more crack sealing, or not so much? It doesn't fit what the needs are right now or the budget?
I think the village has done a good job doing a lot of crack sealing. So they're, for a better word, I guess, they're running out of roads that really fit doing the crack sealing. You don't want to do the crack sealing, if it's too far gone, it's kind of just a waste of money at that point. Right. So with how much money the village has been putting in crack sealing, I think what you're seeing is that you guys have done a good job with that. And because of that, there's less candidates to be done with the crack sealing. We will certainly look, and these are all just, preliminary estimates. So a lot of times what will happen is if there's money left over, let's say the resurfacing costs a little bit less, we could potentially add additional crack sealing if we feel like there's areas that need to be crack sealed. I think the first thing that we want to
hear, because it sounds like you have looked at it very carefully for what could be crack sealed if it can. And that's what I was really looking for, to see if there was any more opportunity. But it sounds like you've done a good job of fleshing that out.
And we did look at, the village has done a good job of utilizing the microservicing in the past. And I think at this point, the kind of the areas, the subdivision work, if you will, where the village is kind of focused doing their crack sealing to try and get a whole subdivision done, if you will. The streets aren't at that point yet. I think the areas that, looking into the future where that would potentially meet that would be Meadow Ridge Villas subdivision, Hannaford Farms subdivision, Settlers Ridge. But I don't think those pavements are at the age where that is the appropriate research or rehabilitation method at this point. I think in 2, 3, 4 years, that would be a good idea to look at those.
Good. Any other questions?
I had a question. I've had some residents ask about the Windsor Point subdivision roads, because I think we've only had crack sealing back in 2015. Are they at a point that you could do microsurfacing, or what would be the next thing that we could do? Because I don't think we can do crack sealing again for that subdivision.
Correct. So that was one of the subdivisions that we did put estimates together. So it's beyond the crack sealing stage, the microsurfacing stage. We would not be able to crack seal it again. So the next step would be to resurface it. So the cost to resurface the whole subdivision is about $1.6 million. So obviously, given what the annual budget normally is for the village, that would have to be done in different phases. Well, that is a subdivision that we did look at, and I think that would be, something to look at in the future, keep a look at on the future as a potential area to focus resurfacing after this year's program.
Yeah, I just don't want it, it and some of the other subdivisions you mentioned to go, well, that's just way too expensive so we're just going to turn a blind eye, is how sometimes some of the residents feel like it's too much. We're not going to even think about it, and it just gets worse and worse. Right. But I understand we don't have the money for all that, but yeah, I think some of those subdivisions like Windsor Point need to look at and doing in phases or something before it gets too bad.
Understood.
Heidi, I think this is Michelle. I think it's worth noting too that we did get the grant to do the pavement management study, and some of that pavement management study will highlight priorities and kind of rankings of what each road what the maintenance path is for each road, and then it comes back to the board each year, obviously, for concurrence, but that should help guide some of our decisions, I would hope, in the future.
Okay, that'd be excellent. Thank you.
Chris, when you resurface, are you milling down the surface and then putting on new level, or are you just a level over what's there?
No, we would be milling because those streets are curbed. We gotta meet the curb, so we'll be milling most likely some sort of 3-inch or 4-inch mill, at the curb, potentially milling a little bit less at the crown, depending on what the existing cross slope is out there, to potentially increase that, as well as increase some of the thickness of the road. But there will be milling on Park and Capitol.
And, depending on how bids come in, I would ask that we consider doing the Queensgate Drive by Merrill Road and Windstone entrance. That area right there by the tennis courts gets a lot of traffic, and that seems to be in bad shape and could fall apart. So I don't think the whole subdivision needs to be redone, but maybe that intersection.
Okay. And that was another one of our subdivisions that we did look at, and we did put a cost associated with that. Just to kind of put it in perspective, to do Windstone, basically Queensgate, Merrill New, and the courts off all of those is a little over $1.1 million to do that subdivision. So that was another area that we did look at, just like Windsor Point.
Okay. And that subdivision, Windstone's 30 years old already, so it's amazing how time flies. Okay, any other questions for Michelle, Chris, or Tony? Okay, please bring that forward in the next meeting. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Michelle. Tony, thank you. Any questions for staff? Brent's not with us tonight, but any questions for staff? In Matt's staff report, he did mention we'll do a comprehensive review of the finances next meeting on December 1st. He did send out the treasurer's report that shows the 6 months financials and looks in pretty good shape, everything considered. So, but, any questions for staff?
I don't have a question, but I've got an accolade for Tony, and I'm not sure if Brad's out there or not, but the guys trimmed Mallard Point about a week ago, and it looks wonderful. They did such a nice job. They cleaned up after themselves. Even the garbage truck, when it came through Monday, I stopped and talked to the guy for a second, bringing the cans in, and he made a comment on how much easier it was to drive through the trees. So thank you so much. It's very much appreciated. It was very much needed. Guys did just a bang-up job.
Thank you.
I wanted to reach out to Tony and ask Tony if he could. I got an email from a resident regarding the Bliss and 47 intersection and how it's dangerous at night when you're traveling eastbound off of Wheeler and trying to cross 47 onto Bliss Road, and that median being there, that a car in front of this person actually drove, because there were no cars parked going left or straight across that intersection, that a car made it in front of them to the left hand of the median. So if there's either reflective striping or a sign that says stay left, stay to the right of this, something, if you could address, if you could address it for the board and see if there's anything that could be done about that.
Somebody did send in an email a couple weeks ago, and we are currently reviewing that. There is a delineator that has been installed at the end of that median right at 47, and there's also one at the other end of it. Based on the design of the intersection, if you're on Wheeler Road and you go straight across, you wind up exactly in the proper lane. It takes effort to get into the wrong lane, but since Bliss Road is a county road, we did notify the county, and we are currently reviewing that with them. So we did receive some information or a request from somebody to take a look at that, and it is under further review, and there has been a delineator put at the nose of that median.
And John, if I may interpret and define what delineator is, it's a little pole. It's yellow and it sticks up about 30 inches off the median. So that's what Tony means by a delineator. Because I just noticed that the last couple of days. So thank you, Tony.
Yeah, stop talking over our heads, Tony.
Yeah.
I was afraid to ask. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you said it.
Chief Rollins, you mentioned that the new Tahoe is in service and been marked with the ghost markings.
Yes, so it's out in the PD backlot right now. So if you're here at the Village Hall, you're welcome to come by and drive through and see it. You'll see it throughout the community. I know I sent pictures in an EVS email. It's getting a lot of great comments from within the community, as well as from our neighboring police agencies that all think it's very sharp. So we're happy with it, and we hope it will serve the purpose that we designed it for.
Good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I do have a couple more items to highlight. I know we talked about 47 and Bliss, and that project is essentially completed, so there will be no more activity out there. Overall, it's been a huge improvement, and we've been satisfied with the complete operation of that intersection. The traffic signal timing is all controlled by IDOT, and that traffic signal is interconnected with Galena and 47 as well as Cross and 47. So it's all programmed to work together. So I think that's a remarkable improvement in that intersection. Also, as we talked about, the 2020 road program has been completed. We did have some restoration issues that we're going to reevaluate in the spring. There was some very unacceptable restoration done in Mallard Point, and we're continuing to follow up on that. As with all our projects, there is a 10% retainage that we do keep for a year. So if something doesn't get, that isn't covered by the warranty, we do have some funds to look at that. I did also want to mention that the Prairie Road realignment, anybody been out that way, has been completed. And we have filed the paperwork to institute the quiet zone. It takes a while before the paperwork is approved and for it to be instituted. So we anticipate the quiet zone to actually be quiet by the end of the year. And then I also did, since it's November, a few snowflakes have gone flew around a little bit. We do have approximately 2,000 tons of salt currently in storage, and most of the fleet has had preventive maintenance and it's ready to roll.
I do have a couple things just to highlight. They're in my staff report, but the first one is I want to thank Laura for the anti-harassment training. I think for the circumstances we had it went as best as it could, between the GoToWebinar and then an in-person, but in the garage for social distancing. And that is something that's a requirement on an annual basis. And so we'll be conducting that every year and keep up with that. Sometimes Irma does it, and sometimes we'll probably have our attorneys do it. And then the other item, I know it's going around and people have heard about it, unemployment claims under people's names of fraud. Just want to kind of reassure that this is not something that's village specific. This is a very widespread issue. IDES has sent out notifications that we have specific email addresses that we need to report fraud to because it's happening at such a high pace that they want more direct contact rather than just going through kind of our channels as an employer. I think we've had 4 or 5 on an employee side. I know that it's going around. So I would just continue to tell people to monitor credits, bank accounts, any type of financial institutions, but it is definitely not just the Village of Sugar Grove issue. And there's no breach on the village's side that is causing this to happen. It's just a widespread issue, especially with COVID, because a lot of them are around the time that everyone shut down in unemployment claims. So there's a ton of fraud going on with that. And then is there a question on that?
I just have a quick question regarding that. I do have a friend that this happened to, but I found it interesting that they were actually sent the documentation for the unemployment claim. So although it's, fraudulent, it seems odd that they're getting notified, you know what I mean, of this. So you're saying it went through the village. Does that mean that we've had staff members that this has happened to?
Right. So if it's happening to people that are not village employees, then that's through their employer. So their employer would have been notified. But this is something that's coming through village staff employees as well. But what's happening is I think they're just applying under so many people as fraud that they're seeing what sticks. They're in all different types of stages by the time we get them, whether it's an initial claim, whether it's people waiting for bank accounts, waiting for their debit card. We get them in so many different levels of unemployment that we just report them immediately as fraud. And all we can tell the employee or anybody that's calling is call unemployment and get in line, I guess, because that's what I've been hearing is you just get in line and wait for a call back. So to report the fraud.
It happened to me last week. I got the letter on a Tuesday and I got my debit cards on a Friday. So it happens very fast as far as get the money immediately.
Yeah.
So I don't know any more than that.
It happened months ago, probably July or so for my wife. We got debit cards in the mail and it was something, basically asking you to put information in, and we just shredded them because, she's not working anymore. She's retired. Can't collect unemployment for being retired. So I figured it was some kind of scam. We called, ended up getting through to the Attorney General, and they said that basically you just get on a hotline, like you say, for the Department of Unemployment, and it took probably 3 weeks before we got a call back. They say just leave a number, somebody get back to you, and it was about 3 weeks before somebody called back, and he basically said, if you have something to worry about, we'll call you back. If you don't hear from us, don't worry about it. So it's that widespread. They didn't seem to really be that worried. I think what will happen is when we start getting tax information in the mail, we'll probably see an uptick in people that are victims and didn't know it because the government's going to be asking them to claim money they didn't get. So.
Yeah. And I would say a lot of the claims we're seeing are from initial claims back from March and April. They're not recent claims. They're saying that the initial claim dates are back right when COVID happened and all the unemployment happened. So they're trying to get it as COVID fraud, essentially, is what they're calling it.
One of the other things you can do, and I would encourage citizens listening in or whatever to do this, is call the three major credit bureaus, like Equifax and that, and put a lock on your credit. That way, unless you're buying, I think it's TransUnion, Equifax, and what's the third one? There's one more. Yeah. You can just call there, put a lock. You can go online yourself, put a lock on your credit once you verify who you are, and you can take that lock off anytime you want. But that way, no one's trying to buy a car or apply for a credit card. They won't be able to get it without going through one of those credit checks. And if your account's locked, it'll flag and let you know, hey, somebody's trying to get something under your name.
Yep. The last thing that I have for anybody listening is yard waste pickup. We are getting a ton of calls for that. Obviously, we are coming towards the end of November. So for residents, if you are a Monday pickup, your final yard waste is on the 30th of November. And if you're a Tuesday pickup, your final yard waste is the 24th of November. So just giving everybody a heads up, we start getting quite a bit of calls. So we try to get as much information out there, but just kind of a heads up.
Allison, can we put that on the Facebook page or something, that information that Matt just said?
Oh, it's on there. It's posted at the
okay.
top.
All right, perfect.
Before, and it's going to be emailed out again. So yeah, we're expecting a little trouble. So trying to get the word out.
All right, thank you.
The key to remember, and maybe Allison, we can put this down as part of it. It has nothing to do with our garbage contract as much, or us trying to stop it. It's the dumps stop accepting that stuff after the 1st of December. So even if we picked it up, we would have no place to take it.
Okay. All right.
Well, that, we had a couple things. First, everybody will be happy to know we issued the building permit for metronet storage yard, so that should be under construction. We had a pre-conference, or a pre-construction conference today with the contractor for the industrial building on 470 Heartland, and they'll, the excavator's already parked on the property. They'll start earthwork, if not Friday, early next week. And hopefully the building will be under construction sometime in December. The other thing is I've reported to you before that, I've been in contact with a individual that was interested in the old Prairie Grove property at the southwest corner of Galena and Route 47. I can report that he has a contract to purchase the property, so he's making progress. And I spoke with him this afternoon to get an update, and he's very excited about the prospects for the property. He's got no less than 6 different national chains interested in his property, and he expects to be coming back to the village board for various zoning approvals and other things shortly. So I think that's good news. And then lastly, I'm sure this is of interest to everybody in the community, but Prairie Point, the assisted living facility on Park Avenue, they continue to make progress inside the building. I can tell you that the finish line is in sight, but nobody is willing to give a opening date. So we just have to wait a little bit longer, but they are making progress, slow, but they are making progress, and the building will be open.
Good.
When did they break ground on that property?
4 years ago.
Yeah, okay.
And it took 4 years to get them to submit plans and get approved because they went back and forth with the architects and all that. So it's a long project. Chief, did you have anything to add?
I do. If not, I'm going to get razzed tomorrow morning. So, so just a little caveat to what Matt was saying. If you are a victim of the unemployment scheme, to please file a police report in the community that you live in. We've had a number of residents that have already filed, even though their employer may not be here in Sugar Grove. We're still taking those reports, and it's just a added protection. We will send you over to the Federal Trade Commission and fill out some online forms that will also automate the process and get you into the queue. So this is already a built-in process, and there's probably 5 or 6 states that right now are heavily seeing an uptick in this type of a scheme. So some of the highlights from my staff report is Sergeant Durham is currently in staffing command. So what is staffing command? So as a brand new sergeant, we try to get many of our supervisors into training classes once they are promoted over the first few years while they're in this position. There's numerous 1 to 3 day classes and a 2-week supervisor class that we send them to, in addition to the other training classes that are non-supervisory in nature. So they're constantly going to class if you're an officer or a supervisor. Changing roles with the added responsibilities from being a patrol officer to being a new supervisor evolves over time. From managing and leading a shift to stepping up to assume temporary command of the department. Education and training are important, and providing the right tools for them to succeed is essential for all of our success. So who's been the staff in command here at the Sugar Grove Police Department? Sergeant Finelli and Sergeant Kurzweil are graduates of the 10-week Northwestern Staff and Command training. So what is Sergeant Durham doing? She's currently attending Staff and Command hosted by the DeKalb Police Department. Typically in the Chicagoland area, it moves around to the 4 quadrants for local areas to host it. But she is attending a class that was scheduled to be hosted at DeKalb Police Department. However, due to COVID and the state guidelines, they have been rotating to many training sites based on the mitigation and what county they're in. So they've moved around in DeKalb, Kane, and other locations. And obviously this is not typical, but neither is this year. What does her schedule look like? Sergeant Durham is in essence working 2 weeks honor shift here at the police department. And while she's here, in addition to her normal duties, she's leading her shift. She's doing her homework, reading multiple sources, and writing papers that have been assigned. The workload obviously is intensive, and you need to stay on top of it to get the most out of the training. Currently, this week is they're supposed to be in classroom cycle, meaning that they're in-person class sessions. However, this week some of them are remote learning at home due to classmate testing positive to COVID. So not uncommon to what we're seeing in our local schools as well. So what is Staff in Command, and why is it taught all over the world? This is a 10-week training program. Some are taught 10 weeks straight in Evanston or another location. Some are 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off. And another delivery method was all online, and this was pre-COVID. But right now we have, for staffing purposes, we have Sergeant Durham attending a 2 week on, 2 week off class. So this is a little snippet from Northwestern. I'm going to read this. It is an intensive police management and leadership program that helps prepare students for senior command positions. It's designated for mid and upper level supervisory personnel. It combines academic principles with practical applications and focuses on a range of critical leadership and management areas, including planning and policies, media relations, organizational behavior, problem solving, budgeting, and resource allocation, human resources and employee relations, contemporary policing, and more. So in essence, they're effectively learning how to implement strategies and apply the concepts to lead situations where the problems are real and our agency performance outcomes are critical. So that's basically Staff in Command. We're hoping she's going to hopefully graduate Staff in Command by March of 2021. Another area that I just wanted to make aware for everybody is our range duties that we have for our police officers. We're fortunate to partner with other police agencies in the area that have gun ranges. We have a commitment from St. Charles Police Department to utilize their outdoor range 4 times a year. We get these assigned, I believe, randomly with dates in advance. So rain, snow, sunshine, we utilize their outdoor facility to hone our skills. However, though, I believe in the past couple of years, we've got plugged into a January, February training slot, and it can get a little dicey out there. Sometimes we see the negative wind chills or extreme temperatures, so we cancel that class. So we may only go 3 times a year. So what officers do on the range, they qualify with their handguns, perform proficiency training with targets, barricades. We just did ballistic shield training and rifle training. In addition, we believe that we have some additional training that's be coming up for them, and we're fortunate to partner also with North Aurora Police Department. We're able to utilize their facility. It's an indoor facility, and we can use it many times a year in a controlled environment, so we don't have to worry about the elements. Even though we might be able to pull a squad, they allow us to pull a squad car into the indoor range. We can turn the lights off and basically have an environment so that if you're on the afternoon shift or the midnight shift, you can portray an incident or a traffic stop or an event unfolding in front of them in no to or low light situations. So we're very fortunate to partner with St. Charles and North Aurora. And then note from last board meeting, thank you again. You helped us, you approved the village purchase of the sterilization equipment to help mitigate the many changes of COVID and the other, I would call it biological material that we sometimes encounter. We took possession of the sterilization devices last week and we put them to good use at the police station. We are testing it here first, and I know our other departments will be utilizing it near in the future. And lastly, ALICE, which is Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. It is an active intruder option program that we partner with the schools, the churches, businesses, civic organizations in the past. And I know we were supposed to schedule something with Kaylin Middle School, but Kaylin has taken the lead in instructing ALICE within the district with us partnering with them. We have been working with the school district on this endeavor for many years, and I'm pleased that we are preparing for hopefully a non-event ever, but providing necessary skills and experiences to adapt in an ever-fluid environment if ever encountered. Kaneland Middle School and us have been working on viable dates to do the training this year, but it's still up in the air as in-person moving to remote learning may be on the horizon. So we're not sure we're going to get the LS training done before the end of 2020, but stay tuned and we'll keep you informed. I believe that completes my report.
Well, thank you. All right. We heard from all staff. Is there any other questions for staff? Okay.
Sean, I just wanted to mention, you brought it up today at the EDC board meeting, but if you could have Michelle update the board on the Park and 47 traffic lighting.
Michelle?
Sure. I think we, at this point, hitting somewhat of a standstill with IDOT in regards to the need for that and the validity of that. There's also concern in regard to some of the distance between the other intersections. So there's both, it's kind of, IDOT has basically told us that we're at a stalemate with IDOT, I think. So village staff is kind of researching other possibilities, but at this point, it's not warranted via IDOT.
I have talked to Senator Oberweis on this, and has put in a request for grant funding. So I was hoping that if a state senator was able to obtain a grant, that it might prod IDOT to approve this project. So I have spoken to him a number of times on this.
And also, I'll just add on Brent's behalf that I know he has reached out. He had found a contact in the governor's office, and he has reached out to them. He was waiting to follow up until after the election, just because he figured it might be a little less political. So he will be following up now on that as well.
Okay. All right. Moving on. Trustee comments. Sean, Aaron.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Ted?
Nothing new.
Okay. Jennifer?
The only thing I wanted to add, I made mention of it earlier today at the EDC board meeting. The idea that our comp plan, from what I understand, maybe Walter can give me a more specific timeline, but that the comp plan is something that we would be starting potentially in December. And the fact that the EDC sales and marketing gentleman has not long been with the village for about a year now. I just ran a thought by the EDC board that it would be nice to have a staff member or some marketing company or some outreach for our village to be working on economic development and be proactively looking for businesses that we want to have in the village. And that would be a partnership with the comp plan and our residents getting involved in that process. And then also potentially having someone, whether the board agrees, we're getting ready to budget. Staff is looking at budgets right now, that if there's a way to add this in there and proactively look for businesses for our village that we all want here, I think would go a long way. That's all I wanted to add.
And at that board or EDC meeting, I had mentioned possibly using Retail Coach. So maybe they're a consulting firm instead of locking into a salaried employee where we might have to provide benefits and office space to work with Retail Coach. And it's very promising that that Prairie Point property is going to be developed and has 6, I think you said, national chains looking at that, Walter. So maybe working with the developer and some of those retail chains, there might be some opportunities to pursue retail development. And then as the comp plan develops, then look at either someone in-house or again using a consultant to promote our community.
I had a meeting with CMAP this afternoon and got an update on the schedule. They're not looking to engage the consultant until January, so the project may not start until February.
Okay. Anything else, Jen?
No, thank you.
Okay. Heidi?
Nothing at this time. But be on the lookout. Girl Scouts still plan on selling cookies this year.
Good. Rick?
A couple things. One, I just want to elaborate on what Pat was saying about sending Sergeant Durham to staff and command. As a graduate of that school myself, I think he's doing a great service to the community, sending the mid-level supervisors and stuff to it. It does much more. If anyone even questions, okay, we got someone we're paying for 10 weeks to be out of town. This is something that Pat, one thing Pat didn't touch on is doesn't only move you to the next level as a supervisor, it builds career relationships with other communities. It's not uncommon for our police officers or any police officer to have contacts with the neighboring communities that they touch. However, in the staff and command school, people are coming from all over the place. And it's not uncommon to have a class of 30, 40 people, whatever, and they're from not only different communities, different counties. And when you're doing investigations and things of that nature, to have a contact in a community that's farther away from yours that you can just, make a phone call to, it speeds up the investigation process that much more because you've got doors that are already open to you. So, I mean, this is something that's really good for our community. On a lighter note, we've been moving right ahead with the Groovin and the Grove. The process is completed with Oswego. It's going before their board for their final authorization. We're going to be sending a check over to them. Everything is in place. We've already got bands or dates booked. So for the calendar's upcoming season, we're doing the third Thursday of the month, June, July, and August. So on June 17th, we've rebooked the Chain, which is that Fleetwood Mac cover band that we had to cancel this year. On July 15th, we've rebooked Rico, which is the Santana band, cover band that we had to cancel this year. And we're looking, August 19th will be our last one of the summer. And we're kind of bouncing between two bands, checking on prices and availability right now. The one band we had 2 summers ago, the Jimmy Buffett cover band called the Beach Bum Band. We're thinking about bringing them back because it will have been 2 years. But there's another band we're looking at it as an option. It's a Motown band called Soul Sacrifice. And they're kind of a Motown funk soul type of vibe to them. We're basically looking at availability and pricing right now. And the Soul Sacrifice, you may think we're premature in booking already, but there might be a conflict for a Thursday night already with that band with the, I'm drawing a blank, the name of the place. It's at 38 and Winfield Road, the military park.
Cantigny?
Yeah, there may be a conflict with them being booked at Cantigny already for that date. So we're moving ahead, see what we can do, but at least we've got the dates down and everything's falling into place.
Great.
Other than that, just staying safe and well.
Okay. President's report. Tony and Brad, if maybe for next year, if we could evaluate changing out the light heads to LED heads, since we have that funding source through our energy consultant or energy company, see if it makes sense with the price of the head and the labor, but maybe it saves us labor over the long run. And that, let's see. And then talked about, Matt and Allison, the clerk's name at the bottom of the tax levy ordinance is incorrect. It shows Cindy Galbraith as the form letter. So that, and then, I'm looking forward to Matt's presentation next week or next meeting on the budget. Looking over the budget today, it looks like we're in pretty good shape. And, at this point in time, I'm not in favor of approving that tax levy. So it'll be interesting to see, Matt, how it comes in and what you do present. And if there's a way to capture the growth in the new construction and the additions, but not pass it on to our current taxpayers.
Sean, you skipped me.
Oh, Ryan, I'm sorry. I don't have a cross by my paper. I apologize.
Well, you segued. Were you done?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
All right. No, I just wanted to really quick. Obviously, property taxes are always a very popular topic. Or I just encourage us all. There's always a little bit of a misunderstanding or misconception. So I encourage us all to educate each other in our community. Because the target's always on the Village of Sugar Grove. But just reminding you all, we all know this, I think, on the board, that Sugar Grove is 5.5% of our property tax bill, and the big ticket item is Canelan Schools at 69%. Fire is higher than us at 7.1%. So just as a reminder, we're all responsible for our own fiduciary duties here and tax increases and budgets and all that, but it always feels like people are kind of talking to the wrong people sometimes. So just encourage you to always remind people of that in the future.
Okay.
That's all.
All right. Well, thank you. And again, I apologize.
Sorry.
All right. We do have another public comment section. Is there anyone that's left on the panel that would like to speak?
So if you want to speak, you need to use the raise your hand feature. Just click on the little hand. Oh, Rebecca has her hand up. So Rebecca, I am going to unmute you and then you can unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This question is for Chief Rollins. I was just wondering if there's any way that you could have somebody maybe checking Galena close to the bridge heading east in the morning, sometime between, like, I don't know when your shift changes, but between 6 and 6:30. That's the time that I usually leave and I go to work. And there are people, these big, large trucks, these dump trucks that are just racing down Galena, heading towards Orchard Road, and they almost race you to get to that one lane. You can get to the bridge and it turns into 2 lanes, and then you get to the other side of the bridge and it turns back into 1. And they're always seem to race you to try to get to the 1 lane. And not just the big trucks, but some of the regular, people that are trying to go to work in the morning too. It's just like a racetrack almost. I know that there was an accident a couple of days ago at Capitol in Galena. I hope everybody's okay with that, but it just seems like there's so many more people that are just speeding in the morning and then at night on the way home the same way. And I was just hoping for a little bit more police presence along there. That's all I had.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for commenting.
Thank you.
Any other attendees, people have dialed in or watching that would want to raise their hand and make a public comment? Okay. Not hearing anyone, I'll close that portion. Mr. Wolf is not here to present an airport report, and there's no need to go to a closed session. So may I get a motion to adjourn from the meeting, and I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Second. Roll call, please, Allison.
Trustee Cook,
Aye.
Trustee Montalto,
Aye.
Trustee Lindy,
Aye.
Trustee Heron,
Aye.
Trustee Walter,
Aye.
Trustee Conan.
Aye.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. We'll see you on December 1st. Thank you.
Right.